Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how we built our attack token system. So, one of the most common issues with enemies is that they all attack the player at once. It feels unnatural, ruins the gameplay experience, and makes them really hard to read. So, to solve this, we use attack tokens, which basically manage the enemies, when do they attack, which enemy attacks. So, let me show you what it looks like without this system. So basically both enemies approach me together and they just attack at the exact same time. Okay, now if I go behind him, you'll see that one of them just stands there and does nothing. It just ruins the gameplay experience and it feels unnatural. So I'm actually using a behavior tree. Okay, I won't get into that. Maybe we'll do a tutorial on it, but right now I want to focus mainly on the attack tokens. So let's reset things for a second. Okay, so what's actually happening here is the enemy requests a token. As soon as he enters the attack state, he requests a token. Okay, permission to attack. Okay, and then he checks if he can attack, if he received a token. If he received a token, then he basically rolls for an attack. He chooses the most appropriate attack for that based on his position and angle, and then he basically moves to the new attack position, and then he performs the attack, and here he returns the token. Okay, here he returns his token, and then the next enemy basically gets permission to attack. So basically how all of this is managed is that the player has a component responsible for the tokens. Okay, so in order to attack, the enemy needs to approach the player, request a token from him, and then he can attack, and then he basically, when he finishes the attack, he returns the token to the player. Okay, so I created an attack tokens component. I basically created two variables. Okay, max attack tokens. Basically here I define the maximum number of tokens. It should be 2, and current attack tokens is basically how many of them there are right now. Okay, basically once an enemy takes a token, if I have 2, then I'll have 1 left. If 2 enemies took them, then I have 0 tokens left, and that means no enemy can get a token until they finish their attack and return them to the player. So okay, so here basically this is the function that basically manages when the enemy requests the token from the player. Okay, so what happens is I check if the current tokens are greater than 0. That means if I have more than 0 tokens, okay, if so, then I subtract 1 token because now the enemy has received the token, and return success. Okay, in case I don't, then success is simply false. Okay, basically the enemy can't get a token. In addition to that, we have the release token function. Basically the enemy, as soon as he finishes the attack, returns a token, and then I check if the tokens are greater than or equal to max tokens, so they don't return too many tokens. So there won't be like 5 or 6 tokens, because every time he finishes an attack he would return more tokens. And then I just check if it's basically not greater than it, and then I basically update the current tokens to the current tokens. Okay, that means that once the enemy finishes a token, he returns a token, and now they have another token. That means a new enemy can attack. Okay, so let's look at how it looks from the enemy side. Okay, so basically the enemy enters the attack state and then he requests a token. Okay, so what does that look like? Here I basically access the player and then access the enemy as well and request a token. The enemy basically requests a token. He calls RequestAttackToken, and after I check if it's actually success, if it succeeded, if there are enough tokens, if it's success, then basically the enemy received the token and finishes the state. Okay, and now the enemy can attack. So after that, what happens is that he tries to run this sequence. Okay, he checks if the enemy has a token. Let's look into that for a second. What happens is simply he accesses the enemy and checks if he has a token. Okay, I forgot to show you, but the enemy also has a component of its own. This component only contains whether he has an attack token. Okay, basically, because I built a modular system for my enemies, it's easy to add new enemies of all kinds, so I prefer to put it in a separate component. Okay, let me show you that. So this is basically a component that only holds the reference to the enemy and the attack token. Basically a Boolean variable of false or true. Okay? Let's go back to where we were. Here. So basically he checks if I added a decorator that basically checks if he can attack, if he has an attack token. Okay? If he does, then he basically will choose the right attack based on the position, and then he'll go to this radius that's not related to the system, and here he will perform the attack. Okay, so I have a huge chunk of code here related to the attack. It's not relevant. This is the only thing that's relevant at the end of the attack. Basically, I access the player and return the token back. Okay, and then update this value, this variable, to be false. Okay, one more thing that is very, very important is basically to go into the enemy and configure him to maintain a distance between the enemies themselves. Okay, let's see where that is. Here. So basically in the class defaults there is overview. You need to make sure that this is enabled, and basically this is the distance I tell him to keep in centimeters. Okay, I chose 500. That worked best for me. You can choose whatever you want. And let's see how it looks. So now both are enabled and one enemy attacks. And again, the second one moves around naturally, and as soon as he has the ability to attack, he attacks. He doesn't get stuck right behind him, and they try to keep a small distance between them to prevent collisions. Okay, now for my setup, I chose to have them attack slower, but that's related to the combat system. Basically, I have a cooldown here. Okay, so if I decrease it, you'll see that they attack more. That's it.